Good afternoon, everyone. I believe we have a quorum here, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We've got a couple members already present, and we have a presentation, but I just want to share with you, as most of y'all have been monitoring our work up to this point. I think this is our fourth meeting. We've been here a while, so it's moving right along. We've got 15 bills that have been referred to us here today, so we're going to spend quite a bit of time on those perhaps, but we also have a short, brief presentation from Tony McDowell, the Executive Director of the Opioid Abatement Authority. And what we're going to do, Tony, before you do that, we are going to go ahead and dispatch as quickly as we can the members that are here that have hopefully simple bills that we can do that, and then we'll fit you in with your presentation. So, Senator DeSef, I believe you were here first.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee. So I won't go into great detail unless you really want it, but this is a hearing aid bill which we passed out of the Senate unanimously 2 years ago. It's back up this time. There was a little confusion and misunderstanding, but I believe we've got it all worked out.
Okay.
We worked with the lawyers from the SCC Board of Insurance. We worked with the SCC attorneys. We worked with Tom. We worked with Mike Tweedy. We worked with the AG's office. And I believe everybody's on the same sheet of music right now, if I'm not mistaken, Mike. Am I close? And so I think that we have a pretty good bill that talks about providing hearing aids for children under 18 to the tune of $1,500 per hearing aid every 24 months. And as you all know, that when a child can hear what's happening and what he's saying, he can actually speak. And you can understand him. And when he can't, then it's very difficult to understand them. And we've had really good testimony 2 years ago. We had really good testimony this year. Senator Spruill is over in Commerce and Labor, and I told him he didn't need to come over based on our conversation earlier. And but he was happy to come over and talk to you and go into details as well. But I hope we'll find favorably on this. And move it through the process.
Appreciate your work on this, Senator DeSef. This is an important bill that we've worked on before and didn't quite get it across the finish line as far as funding it. There is a minimal fiscal impact, but Madam Chair here that works with me on this committee has indicated we're good with that, and we will absorb that modest amount in there because most of it would be just directive to the industry as far as the mandate. And for me, I think technology is really going to help us out in this area. We have another bill that's moving forward which will allow a little bit of competition in the marketplace, I guess. I want it to get to the point like my eyeglasses, I get at Family Dollar store for $6. And I would think, technology being what it is, we should be able to get a hearing aid for like $25, instead of $7,000. I don't know, there might be people in here who disagree with that, but I believe technology is moving in that direction.
Sir, I believe so as well, Mr. Chairman.
But at this point, we do need the insurance coverage because it is fairly expensive to families. What's the pleasure of the committee?
Move to report. Second.
Motion properly supported that the subcommittee recommend reporting to the full committee. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Senator DeSef. All right, Senator Pillion.
As long as we're not messing with dentures in the Family Dollar, we're fine. As soon as y'all start doing that, then we're going to talk.
Well, you never know.
Yeah. If we're doing dentures over the counter, we may have an issue there.
Okay.
All right.
We won't do that.
Senate Bill 1414, Mr. Chairman. This bill establishes a state share of any funds received from the opioid abatement settlement or judgment shall be deposited into a Commonwealth Opioid Abatement and Remediation Fund. This fund would be restricted to efforts to treat, prevent, or reduce opioid use disorder, abate or remediate the opioid epidemic, or any approved purposes described in the settlement or judgment. I don't think there's a fist to this. No budget amendment was necessary.
Okay. And I think from our standpoint, this would be kind of technical work for us, and this would allocate the 15% state share to this.
That's correct.
Authority. And any questions of the committee on this one? I've remarked that I would prefer all of the money flow through this committee so that we could allocate it, because I don't like authorities. But you have a different viewpoint on that, obviously.
think the settlement had a different viewpoint on that.
Right.
Yeah.
What's the pleasure of the committee?
Move to recommend reporting.
Motion properly supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Senator
All
Petey.
right. Senate Bill 1415 is before you now. Mr. Chairman, this bill creates a framework for a statewide strategy to address the fentanyl overdoses and the overdose deaths through a coordinated state and local approach to eliminate barriers to access and administer naloxone. As we all know, fentanyl is now a major driver in the opioid overdoses and death. According to VDH, in 2007, there were 48 fatal fentanyl overdoses. In 2021, there were 2,039, and that number is doing nothing but rising. Specifically, this bill does the following. It makes naloxone training a recommendation, not a requirement, provides that any person may possess and administer naloxone pursuant to the standing order by prescriber, by the VDH commissioner or his designee. This is in anticipation that it's likely will be available over the counter soon per the FDA announcement in November that naloxone may be approved as safe and effective for non-prescription use. It directs the DOC to provide training and education on naloxone administration to every inmate prior to the release. Directs VDH to develop and maintain a registry of nonprofit organizations that work to reduce the impact of opioids in the Commonwealth and services they provide. And it directs VDH, DBHDS, and DOC to develop and implement a plan for the distribution of naloxone that includes guiding EMS agencies on the distribution of naloxone in high-risk areas. It requires pharmacies that carry naloxone to also have a supply of fentanyl test strips to include with the naloxone provided to customers, and it provides guidance to localities for the implementation of local naloxone distribution plans.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, Senator Deeds.
looking at line 17, nonprofit agencies, anybody that wants to apply gets to apply for this. Is there any way to weed out which ones are legitimate, which ones aren't?
Do you mind if I phone a friend on that?
I don't mind.
Tony?
Yes, sir, Senator. The bill would require VDH to vet the applications through the local health districts, being on the ground with these nonprofit organizations in the communities they serve.
But where, Mr. Chair, I'd ask you where that vet language is. Where am I going to find that? Requirement that you vet the organizations.
Mr. Chair, Senator Deeds, you're referring to line 17,
I
correct?
just wondering, I mean, I got no problem with the bill. I'm just wondering how you know somebody's a legitimate organization.
Yes, sir. My understanding is that the idea is that the department, VDH, would develop and maintain the registry and work through it. You're correct. It doesn't say in the bill that it would use the resources of the local health districts, but I think that's the intention.
The department shall, over on line 19 and 20, the department shall establish criteria for inclusion in the registry.
Okay. Sir Pillion, I think the internal discussion we had here was this was a little more complicated than your first bill, and the thought was get your reaction to that rather than the bill as it exists right now, that we basically turn it into a requirement that a plan will be developed rather than the full, bill the way it's structured to substitute with a substitute. You have a reaction to that? Would that work for you?
I think, Mr. Chair, I think that's the plan. This is the plan that a work group of the authority came up with. Of course, that's the pleasure of this committee, how you want to pursue that.
Okay. Tony, do you have a reaction to that?
No, sir. I think that the intention, as the senator mentioned, was to reduce the barriers that are currently perceived to be preventing particularly the distribution of naloxone. So as we move in that direction, I'm sure we'll.
Okay. The thought was,
Well, I was just going to say,
Senator Howe?
I think the concern was the phrasing that it would be developed and implemented, and there was some thought that perhaps there should be oversight between those two. We should look at the plan and then develop the implementation, or approve the implementation of the plan, rather than them being lockstep.
Lumped together.
Yeah.
Okay. Conceptually, does anyone want to offer that as a motion?
If that's consistent with what you were talking about.
Right.
I'll conceptually.
So, Mr. Chair, so you're saying we would develop a plan and then return back and then implement it? That would be next year, or would that be?
Yes,
Yeah.
I think that's how it
Okay.
would logically
And
have to proceed.
the only, Mr. Chair, with all due respect, the only reason that I would pause on that is because this is such a crisis that we're dealing with.
Right.
And time is the essence, and every minute that we delay is another 6 people.
Say that again?
Every day that we delay.
Every day,
Every
okay.
day that we delay is another 6 people, basically, in the Commonwealth that are dying of fentanyl overdose. So that would be the only thought that I would put out there, that, like I said, we were 2,039 in 2021. We know that number's gone up since then. So while I appreciate developing a plan and going another year to implement it, I think that I would rather develop a plan and execute a plan.
Mr. Chair, I stick with the conceptual motion. We still have a ways to go before the end of the session. We have a lot of time to work this out.
Right, right, okay.
And Mr. Chairman, just to offer, I guess one variation to address Senator Pilgrim's concern is that, naloxone distribution does occur right now. VDH and DBHCS are involved in that. So you could do something in the medium where, try to figure out how to improve that distribution while they're doing that right now. And then you can just have a secondary part of the plan that where there are gaps or additional resources needed, that's the plan that comes back to you all
Right, and
to see what else is needed.
Mr. Chair, I think one of the reasons with the naloxone is because we were trying to keep Virginia in step with what we anticipate the VDA is going to be coming out with in near future.
Okay. All right, we have a motion, then it was properly supported. And again, Senator Pillion, perhaps, if there's some way we can advance the cause a little more adequately as this goes through the process, we'll try to work that in, but you've got our intent, okay? Okay, having heard that discussion, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of advancing Senate Bill 1415 as a planning process rather than an implementation process at this point, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Thank you, Senator Payne. Thank you. All right. Senator Suderline, I believe you were next.
Thank you, Sarah Hanger. I think hopefully won't take too much of your time.
Right. We've seen these bills before, and we didn't quite get it across the finish line, I think.
Right.
So it was, yeah.
Well, you fine people
We
did
did.
everything you should, and I
Right.
hope you will again. Unfortunately, your counterparts in the
Right.
House side did not share that wisdom yet.
Nara did a little bit. Might have a better chance now.
Yeah, that's exactly what we've done. And I don't know, you see it's before you. We have the same problem that we're trying to fix, tried to make it a little narrower, but the issue we have is folks that have DD issues that are eligible for funds that we as a Commonwealth have already decided should be eligible for these funds. There's 3 different funds that they're able to tap into, and today I deal with 2 of them. Previously, we dealt with 3 of them. And what's important to make clear in this is when these folks go to seek these funds, their families usually do it on their behalf, it still has to be approved each time. It's not as if they just have this fund of money that they can just spend down, and that if they save the money, it goes to the next year and they can spend it. So what we have are these designated amounts already, and I just want to make it so that they can use, if they don't need to use from one, they can use from the other.
Gotcha. Okay. Any questions on that from anyone? We did approve this concept last year more broadly with 3 components. It's narrowed now to 2 components. It does have some fiscal impact. Senator Suderline has submitted a budget amendment.
Yes,
And
sir.
I understand from my co-chair here, that we can absorb that, roughly 500,000.
Great
something
work.
like that.
Thank you.
So what's the pleasure of the committee?
Move to recommend reporting.
Motion properly supported to recommend reporting Senate Bill 945. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we will recommend reporting, Senator Sewell.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And so I should not come to full committee. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Wonderful. Thank you. I don't want to take up any more of your time when
Oh, it's so kind of you.
Senator Favola?
Thank you. I've got two bills before you. I guess we'll start with the lower number. The peer recovery specialists removing a barrier crime, an important barrier crime. I have an amendment really in the nature of a substitute, so
You do?
I do. Chandler Brooks drafted it.
Is that online or?
It-
Okay.
It's the amendment that conforms to Delegate Coiner's House Bill 1525.
Conceptually, you're still doing the same things? We were good with what you had.
Well, it's narrowed even further, so what the current, we stated the current law, and then the one additional barrier crime that we're removing, only for peer recovery specialists, would be the crime that's related to felony possession of a controlled substance. So that's what we're removing as a barrier crime. And the caveat is, as long as the criminal behavior was substantially related to the applicant's substance abuse or mental illness, and the person has been successfully rehabilitated. That's the main change in the substitute. And then the other change is, when the state police do a criminal background check, they sometimes have to issue a report, and they wanted language that said a record or a report would be issued to the employer. And those are the two changes in the substitute.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been working very closely with Delegate Coiner, and this bill was voted out of, I guess, HWI. We worked with Delegate Bell on the barrier crime language, so.
Oh, for the- Okay. We don't have that in our system now, do we?
I can post it. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, you're narrowing it, so I'm sure we're in favor of it, just hesitant to move forward till we see
Yeah.
exactly what you've done. Just, and I guess that would remove some of the fiscal, we had a bit of fiscal impact that without a budget amendment, which Chair was willing to absorb. It look-
It might narrow it some, yeah. It was not very broad to begin with, but
So you're basically working with Delegate Coiner or just
Yes.
making it like hers
we're
to
tracking.
increase your favorability of getting through the other side?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
That's exactly right. We're putting too much effort into this to have it not be welcomed
I
in the
got you.
House.
I got you. Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah, so
And you- yeah.
we've got companion bills.
All right. All right, I think we understand that now then. So what's the pleasure of the committee? All right, we need to adopt a committee amendment in the nature of a substitute, I suppose, but we'll do that tomorrow. But that's, would be your motion that we adjust, conform it as Senator Favola has described it. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right,
Thank you.
thank you. And you've got that now. Good.
Would you like this? Okay, thank you. The next bill is Senate Bill 923, Kinship as Foster Care Prevention Program. And this is really near and dear to my heart. What this bill does is it establishes a framework for a relative or victim kin who actually agrees to take care of, be the custodial family for a relative child. And the relative child would likely go into foster care if this family didn't step up. And this talks about the possibility that visitation arrangements for the child's parent or guardian would be an expected part of this arrangement. The Department of Social Services would do a case study of the relative family and provide whatever support services are necessary. There would be sort of one step before what we talked about last year, because we worked with Virginia Poverty Law Center more closely, and a protective order would be an option rather than removing the child, if that would work. But if the child is to be removed, we feel that creating a framework for a relative family to thrive, possibly have joint custody, and ensuring that the child would be able to access resources. This bill will cost a little bit of money.
Right.
Some families will be eligible for TANF. Some will have to draw down state money, relative payments from the state. But in no way will they get, the bill also says that the monthly payment would not be more than the Title IV payment if they were actually in the foster care system.
Right.
So that's one guardrail. And then there is language that says when the dollars run out, the dollars run out. It's
Okay.
very hard to judge, but.
And Senator Favola, you're essentially codifying a program that exists. So the money is already in the budget, actually. It's got enough to cover it for this
It is.
this second year of the budget.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
All right.
that is correct.
Okay, and that's the important thing for us to know.
Yes,
With the work
and
that
I-
you've done to make it a better program and codifying it. That is good.
We think it would be easier for us to train our child protective service workers in our localities. So, and this is wonderful because the child never goes into the foster care system. The family's known to Child Protective Services, but the child doesn't have to go into the system to access these funds.
Okay,
So that's the beauty of it. I really do hope it's the will of the committee.
okay. Any further discussion?
Endorse this.
What's the pleasure of the committee?
Move to recommend reporting.
Is there a second?
There's a second here from Senator Tullis.
Okay. I didn't hear that. Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of recommended reporting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Senator Favola. We will
Thank
recommend
you.
reporting that.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
So I will listen to this.
Let's see, which one of y'all was in first? Senator Donovan, Senator Lewis? What? He's done? He's done? Senator Lewis? Okay. All right.
Chairman, members of the subcommittee, I have Senate Bill 1457.
1457, okay.
Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, 1457 seeks to correct a defect with the Medicaid long-term services and support screenings in nursing homes. It's resulted in the denial of Medicaid benefits for certain patients. If a patient is sent to a nursing home now for short-term rehabilitation, the screening must be completed if they're on Medicaid, they have applied for Medicaid, or they indicate they're going to apply for Medicaid. If a patient meets those criteria but yet doesn't have the screening prior to admission, they can't access Medicaid benefits from the nursing home long-term care if they develop the need for the long-term care. And the nursing home will never be paid for the services provided to the patient. This legislation allows an existing nursing home screening team to conduct the long-term services and support screening, and if it's determined the patient may have a clinical need for Medicaid-covered long-term support, it should be provided to admission. If the lack of the required screening was the fault of the nursing facility, the patient will not be able to access Medicaid benefits for 6 months, but the nursing home will be responsible to provide the care. That is the bill, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Was this screen pretty good in education and health before you got the 15-0 vote?
It was, yes, sir. Fine-tooth comb.
Okay. Looks like the fiscal impact is indeterminate, and it does make sense. What's the pleasure of the committee?
Move to report.
A motion properly supported to recommend reporting Senate Bill 1457. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll recommend reporting. Thanks, Senator Lewis. Senator Donovan?
Mr. Chairman, do I understand that you have already heard of 1261?
No.
Okay, so you want me to do both of these? So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll start with 1261, which is known as electronic prior authorization, but the bill actually does several other things. This is a work group that we sent to Bureau of Insurance last year, and they worked on it, and they came up with consensus in Peace in the Valley. And basically, what will happen is electronic interconnectivity between health plans and providers so that doctors can see the real-time cost of a prescription before they prescribe it, just like a pharmacist can. They can also see other lower-cost alternatives. They can initiate electronic prior authorization, reduce the wait time for patients to hear from 18 hours to 5. And the work group will continue to work to see if we can't get to electronic prior authorization for surgery, and also the truth in true cost for a copayment when you walk into a doctor's office. So, Mr. Chairman, with that, there is a budget amendment that is associated with it, and I am looking to see where it is now and say, oh, actually,
No, you didn't.
yeah. So, yeah, I don't know if we put a hold on, the only cost to this implementation is for the work group, which we were told they weren't going to need, but then we heard theoretically if there were a lot of work groups.
Senator Donovan, the internal discussion we have had was that we would possibly do a substitute and just eliminate the work group, move the bill forward that way. Do you guys see a problem with that?
The Bureau of Insurance is specifically asked to continue the work group because they think there are going to be some snags as they implement, and they wanted to keep working to see if they could take care of the issue with electronic prior authorization for procedures in surgery. So there is no budget amendment in on this one?
No, but I mean,
Okay.
we could check to see if they could use their non-general funds to cover it if they really need to.
They had told me they did not need a budget amendment for this, and I had warning that if there were 10 or more studies, so I thought we had at the last minute put in a holder for some money, but my mistake if we did not. But the Bureau of Insurance told me specifically they did not need money for this ongoing work group.
Here's what I'm perplexed.
Yeah.
We're suggesting that you don't need a work group, we could just report it.
Okay.
But you're saying that you think a work group is needed?
It's perplexing.
So now you're perplexed too.
Yes.
Do you think we could approach it with just modifying it a bit to say that the work group could be continued with non-general funds as available, something of that
Yes,
sort?
I think that's fine. And then they can, if they want it, they can choose to keep. I think they were looking for empowerment in an enactment clause.
And that it can even be a Section 1 enactment clause, one that doesn't appear in the code.
I accept that amendment.
Okay, so everybody seem to be agreeable to that?
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion or questions relative to,
You got it.
he's quick, go ahead.
Move to report and concept.
Okay, is there a second? Second. Okay, is the motion properly supported that we were recommending implementing the content of this bill, but the work group would be subject to available funds, non-general funds that might be available to the State Corporation Commission. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Senator Donovan.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I also have Senate Bill 1529.
That's not on their docket.
Ah.
Is that
I totally got the wrong information. I thought this one was and the other one wasn't.
I think you're good.
deal with?
It looks like I don't know where it is. A dependent tax deduction.
Oh, that's just probably at the full committee.
Okay, got it. All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Senator Donovan.
Thank you.
Senator Newman? Tony, are you time constrained? You okay? Okay, thank you. All right.
Hello, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Newman?
I normally don't like getting behind Donovan because she takes forever, but she did good.
Shit, we were. She's doing good stuff today. We really like that.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, this bill came out of Education and Health, and it was a big bill and became a little bill in the subcommittee. It basically does two things. That indicates to the magistrate that they find certain items are present, that is, a provider's available, willing, and there's a need for a alternative transportation network on an ECO or TDO. They will find that it's needed. And the second item is that there will be standards that are set up in regards to alternative transportation, and those standards would allow, if they would be met, there could be certain use of restraints as outlined in the bill. They're considered to be compassionate restraints, and they basically have to be someone that is under DBHDS's contract. They have to have the program completed, and the restraints need to be necessary and the least restrictive options.
All right. Looks to be in pretty good shape, and we've observed that there's actually no fiscal impact that we have here. So what's the pleasure of the committee?
Move to report.
Second. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We will recommend reporting. Thank you, Senator Newman. You were quicker than Senator Donovan, but are you? Okay. I believe we've cleared up members visiting us for the time being. If you'd like to come forward, we'll go with your presentation.
Chairman, members of the committee, you have a full presentation in your binder, but with your indulgence, given the schedule, I was going to offer to do kind of a executive summary.
Okay.
And with that being the case, my name, as the chair mentioned, is Tony McDowell. I'm the executive director of the Opioid Abatement Authority. I started in the position in August. We have hit the ground running. I wanted to provide just some general information, and I know that members of the committee, as well as folks in the audience, probably already have much of this information, but to level set, we are looking at the Commonwealth of Virginia as a whole, and that includes both the state government and all of the cities and counties in Virginia that signed on to these settlements. We're looking at a total amount of settlement funds coming to the Virginia of about $1 billion over the course of the next 16 to 18 years. And this is from multiple different defendants that are negotiating at the national level to settle these claims. Prescription opioid manufacturers, marketing companies, and distributors, both wholesale and retail. So how are these funds distributed within Virginia to different entities, and what are the allowable uses? The answer to that is provided in three different documents combined. The first is the actual national settlement agreement. For example, the first settlement that came out was with a group of distributors, and that settlement agreement is 600 pages long. And so each settlement that comes along, each agreement, will have slightly different requirements that go with it. And so we have to understand what those are. The second item is the statewide allocation memorandum of understanding that the Attorney General negotiated on behalf of the Commonwealth with all 133 cities and counties. They are all signatories onto that MOU, and it indicates how the funds will be shared within the Commonwealth. It sets up the requirements for how the funds can be used, and it even established a concept of how the Opioid Abatement Fund and the Opioid Abatement Authority would be formed. And then, of course, the statute that the General Assembly passed in 2021 that effectuates many of the items that were in that MOU. All three of these documents are combined into a court order. We have now 2 Virginia court orders that move us forward with these. In some cases with the company Mallinckrodt, and then ultimately with Purdue, we expect that this will be more of a federal bankruptcy, in which case a state court order won't be required. So of the estimated $1 billion coming to Virginia over the life of these settlements, according to the agreements that are in place, 30% will go directly to the cities and counties. And so we've encountered some misconceptions in the community. These funds, as members of the committee know, do not go through the state budget. They do not go through the Treasury. They go directly to the cities and counties. And in fact, the first checks and wire transfers went out to Virginia cities and counties last summer. 55% will go to the Opioid Abatement Fund, where it will be, Opioid Abatement Authority will have the responsibility to set grants and financial assistance to cities and counties. And then 15% will go to the Commonwealth, where it will be available for appropriation through the state budget.
I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
I could interrupt you. With the funds that are flowing directly to the cities and the localities, and then the authority, the other part, do y'all have any responsibility, or will y'all kind of be the repository for best management practices to help in, I guess, in best uses for these funds as they flow to the local governments?
The short answer is yes, sir. The way the agreements are written, the funds that go directly to the cities and counties are individually responsible for adhering to the national settlement agreements. That's a big lift. And so we have, the board has made its intentions clear to serve as a purveyor of best management practices to the cities and counties and how they spend those funds. It will be required in the use of Opioid Abatement Authority funds that go to cities and counties. And in fact, our board has offered an incentive to cities and counties that if the cities and counties will apply the Virginia statutory limits on those funds to their direct settlements that they're getting from the settling companies, then they can receive additional funding from the Opioid Abatement Authority in order to voluntarily adopt what we're calling the gold standard.
Okay, gotcha. Good.
Absolutely. So we view, so far Virginia has drawn down the maximum settlement funds available in each of the agreements that have come out. In order to continue to do that, we will have to make sure that our localities know how to use the funds properly, and we have to make sure that we're not violating any of the court orders, the MOU and so forth. The pie chart kind of gives you a graphical representation of how these funds are distributed within the Commonwealth. As I mentioned, they go into basically three pieces of the pie: the funds that go to the Commonwealth, the funds that go directly to cities and counties, and the funds that go to the Opioid Abatement Authority. Within the OAA piece of the pie, it's further divided, and by statute, the OAA will award grants and financial support of at least 15% of the fund directly to cities and counties, at least 35% of the fund to cooperating partnerships comprised of cities and counties, and then 15% back to state agencies. That leaves 35% of the opioid abatement fund in an unrestricted bucket from which the board can make additional awards to cities, counties, and state agencies. That's a very quick overview of how the funds are allocated within the Commonwealth. On the back of the flyer, I've listed some limitations about how Opioid Abatement Authority funds can be used in accordance with state code. And then I've listed examples of some major categories of allowable uses that aren't, this is not a comprehensive list, but it does provide a good general summary of the types of uses that are allowed for these funds as they go either directly to cities and counties or through the OAA to cities, counties, and state agencies. And Mr. Chairman, that's a quick overview. I'm happy to try to answer any questions that members may have.
Okay. Are there questions from the members while we have the director here? Well, this is a good summary document for us to introduce it. Do you have any questions for us? Anything as far as what you're up to that we could be helpful with? Other than resolving that bill for Senator Pillions, you want to?
Well, I will simply say that I've had the chance to compare notes with my counterparts in other states around the country, and I do feel that the statute that the General Assembly adopted in 2021 is sets us up for success as a Commonwealth. We've been leading the charge in a number of respects, and I'm pleased to be given the chance to be a part of this. So thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, we look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Yes. Come ahead, Senator Peterson.
Yes, sir.
Your timing was good. We just finished up with, we cleared the deck of the other senators that were ahead of you and just had a presentation that we heard. And so we're ready to discuss your bill. Don't know what to do with it yet, but we're ready to discuss it.
I don't have it in front of me. I just walked out of higher ed,
Okay.
so I'm doing this. Oh, there we go.
Okay.
All right, perfect.
Just to, I don't know whether you want to present more, but have you had an opportunity with the folks that were interested in proceeding with this and trying to work something out at all? Or we're just about where we were last week?
Well, you know what, Senator Hanger, I've talked with everybody.
Yeah.
And think there's gonna be a difference of opinion. I think the one, I did get some statistics, which I think are important, that in FY 2022, Virginia spent $2.4 billion. We did on prescription drugs. We did $402 million through our state employee health plan, and then we spent basically $2 billion through Medicaid, mostly through the MCOs. And we believe, again, if we adopt these UPLs, the upper price limits that I talked about in the last presentation, that's going to have a direct savings to us as a state, assembly. And then, you know, I can give examples of drugs like Zofran that we can purchase for much cheaper than we're paying for right now. Again, I'm not, you know, I've got people here that can give more details on that, but I think until we put a structure in place to adapt these UPLs, and you know, you don't have to call it the prescription drug, but you can call it whatever, you can call it the Emmer Hanger Commission.
I don't want to go there. No. Well, I'd really like, you know, we don't have consensus, I know, in this committee about what we want to do. I'd like to keep something alive myself in terms of at least a study or some kind of directive to.
I'd like to pass the bill.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a second.
Okay, we can.
Can I have a technical question, Senator Peterson?
Yes, sir.
And I'm a co-sponsor of the bill, and I didn't realize this when I signed it. You've got the President Pro Tem of the Senate appointing 3 members and the Speaker appointing 5.
Yeah.
Was there intent to have the President Pro Tem appoint members rather than the Rules Committee? I'm just curious if that was.
You know, I'm going to defer to folks with a little more experience. Who usually makes our appointments? Is it rules?
Rules on the Senate side. All
I'm
right.
happy to have that amended, and it probably should be equal, too.
Yes.
Well, I think it's because it's probably senators and delegates, so usually there's some disparity if that happens, but.
As long as it includes a majority of both, I don't.
You have to have a majority, yeah.
Yeah, well, in that case, it doesn't really matter.
Numbers
Right.
don't matter to me, but.
But I'm fine to have it amended to be rules. That's not.
I would offer that amendment if it's in order to do this subcommittee.
Sure, we can prospectively do amendments to get in shape that we want it to be.
I'll second that amendment.
Okay. Motion properly supported to change the appointing authority in the Senate to the Rules Committee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. What else do we want to do to this before we fly it up the flagpole?
It's already got a delayed effective date,
Right.
Mr. Chair.
It's January 1, 2024, I believe. Or July 1, 2024, I'm sorry.
It's January 1,
Or it's January 1?
according to this, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I move we report as amended.
All right. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Is further discussion? Okay. All those in favor of recommending reporting with the, as amended, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we're started.
My offer of Hanger Commission is still open. Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Those. Beg your pardon? He's on his way? Okay. Do you have one that you can, a simple one we could tell? What's that? Oh, yeah. Senator Rouse's bill, I think we could do, unless y'all just want to mess with Senator Rouse since he's new. We can.
He's new.
You want to speak to that? Senator Rouse's bill? Oh, come ahead, yeah. Because it was turned into a study, and you good with that?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Karen Addison here representing Loudoun County. Senator Rouse introduced this bill at our request. It has been turned into a study. We ran into a snag with potentially upsetting the Department of Justice settlement by changing any regulations dealing with providers. So we would like to get our hands around some of the provider burden that's currently they're currently experiencing. So we have asked for the study to go ahead and have some time to look at it this summer. And I believe the department has agreed to that. They're not here, so I'm assuming that they're okay with it.
So
Okay.
substitute then, Mr. Chair.
Yes, well, we would, actually, it was, I believe it may have been changed in Ed and Health. So what we have in front of us is the study, and you're good with that? And of course, Senator Rouse is, you're representing that for him?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
I
All
say
right,
that with
what's the pleasure of the
trepidation.
committee?
Move to recommend reporting. Second.
Okay, motion properly supported to recommend reporting Senate Bill 1544. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
It's no fun to mess around with him when he's not here.
That's true. It isn't fun, is it? We could mess around with you, but you would.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Senator Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have three, which your pleasure, sir.
However you want to present them. Numerical order, that's the way we have them here, unless you want to start with the hardest and go to the easiest.
All right, numerical, that's fine. 987's first out of the box.
Okay.
This is an attempt to have guardianship or conservators. We've been working on the process for a while, the last few years. This comes from a JLARC study from a couple of years ago that suggests that at the 1-year mark, you do a full review of the conservatorship or the guardianship that's been appointed, and then it would be every 3 years thereafter, I believe. So some would not require, if the person was so incapacitated, the judge could overrule. Except for the 1-year mark is for each, just to make sure everything's true. But there's language in the bill that says that if in fact they determined that it's not necessary because of the state of the patient, it would not have to be done on an ongoing basis. I don't know what number they've signed on it. It would not be going back. It would just be going forward. Less than 1% of the cases are guardianship, but that's about 2,400. I put $300,000 in for the anticipation of there to be some requirements and some cost.
Okay. We don't have a figure, just says indeterminate, and it would be on the
Yeah,
criminal
I was
fund.
kind of grabbing.
Okay. Okay. It's in good shape like you want it now? It need any amendments or anything?
No, sir, the bill's good to go.
Okay.
As long as
What's the pleasure of the committee?
Well, I just would like to thank Senator Mason and JLARC for following up on what, as I remember, was an RTD series.
yes, ma'am.
It was very alarming. So whatever we can do to improve this is important. So I also moved the two reports.
And I agree, I'll second that, but I agree that motion that allows the court to waive it when it's not necessary
Sir.
is also important. Because there are a lot of people that are struggling with it. I guess any legal fees are ultimately gonna come out of the state of the person who's got the guardian. And some of them just, it's a burden on them to afford.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, looks like you're in pretty good shape. Do we have a motion properly supported? Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of recommending reporting of the bill, that is Senate Bill 987, will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll recommend reporting that.
Thank you, Mr.
All right.
Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the next one's 998. That one might not go so smoothly. So, yeah. So it turns out for TANF, Medicaid, food stamps, and some of these social services programs, there's no right to appeal to a circuit court if you went through the process and determined that the finding had been wrong. Unfortunately, the way this bill is written, it does away with the appeal to social services entirely. That's not what we meant to do. We meant to go to that step, and then if that didn't suffice, it would come back to, and you'd have the ability to do the courts. Unfortunately, my meeting on that's tomorrow, so that might be moot at this point, Mr. Chairman. But I want to point out one thing that I think long-term we need to look at. During the appeal, if you decide change in spousal requirements is a good example. Senator Deeds and I were together. He made the money. He's gone. We filled it out. when we were together. Now it's just me. I've had a change in the spousal situation, needs to be reviewed. But so after it went to the social services review, we wanted it to go to the courts. Unfortunately, it's not the way this is written. But read the last line. The validity of any statute, regulation, standard, or policy, federal or state, upon which the action of the agencies was based shall not be subject to review by the court. So I'm a non-lawyer, but I've never seen a situation where you tell the court they can't review the law, the statutes, or the regulations. So that's what we were trying to get at. Unfortunately, Mr. Chairman, DMAS just, jumped off the building when they saw this one, and social services was going to try to help. And we may have untangled a little bit of a little thicket here, Mr. Chairman, that we need some.
Well, we've got two options here that's been discussed internally.
Okay.
Just, not deal with your bill at all, PBI it, or try to direct somebody to take a look at it, to make a recommendation through a study.
And Mr. Chairman, we were going to try to put the groups together in the off season to see, all right, here's what we tried to do. Obviously, the language didn't do it. But what is the story? Why are they not getting a chance to review? And no, we don't want this to be a full-blown review of, are you properly reimbursing? It's an individual case that we're talking about. And so if you can pull that off, Mr. Chairman, that they can talk about it in the off season, I think that'd be a nice record.
Yeah. Not sure.
Yeah.
Think?
So would be a motion with PBI?
PBI, but with a letter from the chair to the DMAS and social services.
Both of whom, Mr. Chairman, indicated they'd be willing to talk about and try to figure out what we're trying to get at.
Okay.
But I just did a poor
It's just
job
an
of getting
issue
them
now
together in
whether we
advance.
ask them to do it by letter or tell them to do it with the bill. So.
Or tell them to do it with budget language.
I think the administration's opposed. So if you do it as a study, they may just.
I see. Gotcha. All right. Letter. Might get it more done. Okay. You good with that?
Yes, sir. I think
Okay.
that's.
All right.
I should have done a little better job on this one up front, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right. Is that the motion then? Somebody wants to offer that the bill be PBI'd?
I'll make a motion with PBI and send with a letter from the chair to each agency to figure it out.
Okay.
Excellent.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion properly supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of that action on Senate Bill 998 signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, Senator Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, this is Senate Bill 1218. We've talked about trying to elevate the attention giving to aging in Richmond for the last couple of years. Been wrestling around with a way to do it. We had a study group, went absolutely nowhere a couple of years ago. We kept it alive this year. Unfortunately, with the change, we appointed people from Rules in October for a report due in November. So we're not quite ready to completely restructure the whole gig, but what we thought we would do is in the discussion, we started looking at the Commonwealth Council on Aging and how it's set up. Right now, it's set up by congressional district, and that's just kind of odd, and we're having a hard time finding people, so we took the Weldon Cooper Center map and came up with 8 districts that are more contiguous and have more in common when we're dealing with these things, particularly the AAAs, the Agencies on Aging. So what we would like to do is 4 directors of the Agencies on Aging and 4 people appointed at any time with some background in aging. Then, are y'all familiar with the Commonwealth Council on Aging's legislative package this year? Probably not, because there are no legislators on it. So we thought we'd give the Speaker a chance to appoint a legislator and a non-member. The Senate rules appoint a senator and a non-member. And then we're adding the Executive Director of the Virginia Center on Aging. Those would be 13 voting members. And then we add some ex officio that we had initially taken out. And hopefully, by the time this starts getting rolling, we'll have a Deputy Secretary of Aging. But, we thought we'd give this administration the opportunity to look at how they want to establish themselves and how they want to set it up. And hopefully next year in that budget, you'll see that, and that person could be appointed. The reason I'm here, sorry for the babble, I apologize. The reason I'm here is I'd like an executive director. I'd like someone who every day goes to work to run the Commonwealth Council on Aging. And that's the reason I've come and asked for just start with one position, an executive director that keeps these folks together, keeps these meetings going monthly, bi-monthly. When they have a legislative package, they reach out to you, they reach out to me, they say, hey, we really want to work these things, and that's the reason I'm here.
Okay.
There's a lot of verbiage in the enactment clause, because I don't want to kick anybody off. They just appointed 5 people, so we don't, we're not trying to go after anyone. This is not a malicious effort. It's just step one in us continuing to elevate aging in Richmond, when the work group still needs to work with a new administration on to go forward.
Good. Senator Mason, I appreciate you following up on this issue. It's something that I had some interest in a few years ago and kind of dropped the ball on it, and you picked the ball up and are running with it. With DARS being what it is, when you thought maybe the aging piece was not getting enough attention.
Great.
And with being a member of the baby boomer generation, we want them to focus on people who are aging now. Yeah. What's the pleasure of the committee? Motion properly supported to recommend reporting Senate Bill 1218. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Very good.
Excellent. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I appreciate
Thank
y'all's
you.
help.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Okay. What do we got? Senator McPike, is that? What's he got here? Training powers.
Yeah, so Mr. Chairman, we could either have him come to full committee tomorrow, or if you'd like me to describe the bill, it's fairly straightforward.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike. Well, I think we could be
Right.
good on this.
So Senate Bill 1140, basically, again, this is related to the jailer report of the guardianship stuff as well. Basically, what it simply does is it requires the Department for Aging and Rehabilitative Services to develop a training module, and then, of course, to train court-appointed guardians and to start that process by July 1st of 2024. So the fiscal impact is really, in fiscal year 24, 160,000 general funds to develop the training module, and then the position to kind of like coordinate that training for the guardians going forward.
Okay. Fiscal impact projected 160,000 in this current budget, and a budget amendment was presented that would cover that. Okay. All right, everybody understand this measure? What's the pleasure of the committee?
Move to recommend reporting.
Is there a second?
I'll second that, but let me ask you, Mr. Chair, are we gonna have to stick amendments on a bunch of these things, that budget amendments?
The ones that we've run today with the concurrence of the chair of the full committee, I think we're good.
Okay.
We'll absorb it. Yeah, okay. Okay. We have a motion properly supported on Senate Bill 1140. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we will recommend reporting that bill. All right, thank you very much. I believe, does that conclude our work? Okay, very good. That completes our docket for today. The committee will rise.